Morning, everybody. We're just going to give it a minute or two to let everybody get in from the waiting room. So please ensure you are muted. And then that'll help with the feedback. Yes, the slides will be available after the presentation.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Okay, so we still have a few more folks coming in. Great turnout today. Okay, looks like we've just got a few more folks that are still coming in, so we'll take just a few more moments before we get started. And thanks everybody for your patience. Okay. Well, in the interest of everyone's time, I know you're busy, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And the world is run by those that show up on time, I always say. So we'll honor that rule today. So welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Charlotte Robinson, president of the Thunder Bay Chamber of Commerce, and we're so thrilled to have such a great turnout this morning for our information session from the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund about all of the new programs and revised programs that are available to help with economic development and job creation in the North. So we'll begin by acknowledging that the City of Thunder Bay resides in the Robinson Superior Treaty and is built on the traditional lands of the Ojibwa people of the Fort William First Nation, and also recognizing the historical contributions of our Métis citizens. So a quick housekeeping note, because we do have so many folks in attendance today, the way to ask a question will be in the chat. So please, throughout the sessions, please be putting your questions into the chat. And we'll be providing a full list of those questions to the NOHFC to include in their frequently asked questions on their website later on. But we'll also have spots throughout the presentation where Sean and Lucy will respond to the questions that have been received. So feel free to put those questions in the chat anytime throughout the presentation. You can also, if you have a specific question related to your business that you don't want to put in a public chat, you can also send it to Sean Irwin. Sean has just put his email address, sean.irwin@ontario.ca, into the chat. So feel free to send him a direct email as well with specific questions. So as I mentioned, there will be throughout the presentation, we will have some spots where we stop to go through the questions that have been submitted. We also have Lucy Quieton, who is joining us from NHSC, as she will be responding to questions in her areas of expertise, which are forestry, agriculture, mines, and minerals and innovation. That's a pretty broad portfolio, Lucy. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our special speaker today, which is Sean Irwin from the Ministry of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, and is presenting on behalf of the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund. Sean he's lived in Northwestern Ontario most of his life, with time spent both in Thunder Bay and Terrace Bay. He's been with the ministry for about 5 years now, and in economic development for 15 years, working with lots of businesses over that time frame. Sean is a proud veteran of the military who served from 1995 to 2007, and he takes great pride in assisting businesses to start up and expand. So we're thrilled to have you today, Sean, and I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Charla. Everyone can hear me okay? I'll just look for the nod. That's good enough. So yeah, as Charla mentioned, here are the presentation guidelines. Just to keep it as easy as possible, use the chat function as well as email us. We are here to help you. So we'll go to the next slide. So first off, what is NOHFC? It stands for Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation. It's a third-party corporation that was created by the province in 1988. It's gone through every different political party, and it supports economic growth. That is the main thing to think about right there. It's all about economic growth. The goal is really by providing government grants and loans, it's to reduce risk, which in turn will help the new business or expansion and make jobs sustainable and grow the economy. That's the theory behind NOHFC. And then some of the staff are people like myself. I'm a Northern Development Advisor. Lucy is a Northern Development Advisor. We are like the sales force. We are here to make your jobs easier if you choose to apply. We are here to help you position and shape your application. So always reach out to us. We're not commission based though, so don't worry. We're just here to help. Next slide. More information, we do not make the decisions. Lucy and I and others in our office are here to help you, but decisions on the projects are made by the NOHFC board, which is made up of volunteers from throughout Northern Ontario, and it's chaired by the Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, the Honorable Greg Rickford. So we help you apply, you get through the process, then it goes to a board to make the final decision, and it's them. Next slide. Who we serve. It is Northern Ontario. It looks pretty large in reference to all of Ontario, but that's it. It's defined as north of, including the districts of Parry Sound, Nipissing. We have area teams in Kenora, Thunder Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, Sudbury, North Bay. Like, we're all over those areas. Next slide. I'm going to try to limit the presentation just to the business programs that we think are more relative to you. Okay, so already we had a question on event funding. We are not going to be talking about event funding at this because we are looking at businesses and how they want to apply. Okay, so this presentation is going to be about our business programs, the Invest North programs, as well as the People and Talent program, which is very similar to our former intern program. Any other questions you have, feel free to email us. If we are not the experts on it in our office, we will push you to who is the expert. But those are the main programs to look at. The Invest North program, which has the launch stream to assist someone to start a new business, the Grow stream to expand a business, and then our People and Talent program after that. Next slide. Invest North. So this is our startup and expansion programs. The goal here is to support businesses as they look at those goals. They're trying to do productivity, innovation, business competitiveness, revenue growth, export capacity and development, and the big one, as always, job creation and retention. NOHFC is all about supporting businesses with creating or retaining jobs. Next slide. So this is the first program, the Invest North or Launch program. It's very similar to our previous startup program. It provides a conditional contribution up to 50% or $200,000 of total eligible project costs to assist to start a new business. Okay, this is a key point I'm going to highlight. Evaluation factors. What does NOHFC look at when they evaluate a project? Job creation is very huge in the evaluation. Level of investment from other sources, strength of the applicant's detailed business plan, which we can help out with, key one is does not unreasonably impact existing Northern Ontario businesses. You're going to see some of the things that NOHFC does not typically invest in. And a big point is that we're not here to fund a market that's already saturated or where there's a lot of ones, and by this funding, it will unduly impact another business. NOHFC really doesn't want to do that. The funding is to go into markets that are really at a growth stage or haven't been grown yet, and to assist and reduce the risk so those jobs are sustainable. And then the last point there being net economic benefits for Northern Ontario. Next slide. So I'm going to go off a little bit of the website, and then I'm going to give you Sean and Lucy's feedback as well. So what projects are eligible? What does NOHFC fund is the big thing. And we say projects, we know it's your business, we know it's a startup or expansion. We look at it like, what is the NOHFC component, the project? Capital construction is a big one. You want to do a new building. Leasehold improvements, you want to renovate a space. New or used equipment and capital leases, we do a lot of funding of this. Land servicing costs, like bringing in hydro, things like that. Information and communications technology, marketing to a limit of 20%, and then training costs, once again, to a limit of 20%. And training cost is really, clearly it has to be incurred with third parties, okay? So those are the main parts of a project that NOHFC funds. Next slide. What projects are not eligible? Here is some of the most common ones that we see as published on the website. For more details, check the rest of the website. Retail and consumer services, businesses that primarily earn revenue by providing products. With this one, a lot of it is retail, a lot of it is restaurants, a lot of it is things like that that are really, you know, saturated markets or well-established market, that it goes back to that point that NOHFC doesn't want to use funding to unduly assist one at the cost of another business, okay? So this is a key point. A lot of it is retail, all right? And once again, this isn't Sean or Lucy making this decision. We're just putting forward, we're telling you exactly what the NOHFC board and their guidelines typically go by. Ongoing operating costs, including deferred maintenance, is a big one. We don't typically fund projects of like replacing furnaces or roofs or things like that, okay? Now, of course, we'll always look at things on a case-by-case basis. If it's part of the overall project, if you're looking at efficiencies and things, we might consider it. I'll say we a lot of times when I'm referring to NOHFC, when it's bad news, you know, I might not. That's just how we look at it. I work for the Regional Economic Development Branch, but, you know, I also work closely with NOHFC as well. I am their sales force. Restructuring or refinancing of existing business operations, accommodation and food services businesses, and related activities. Note, that doesn't mean agriculture or food processing, which are eligible. What that's mainly referring to is accommodation and restaurants and anything where it's directly to the customer, okay? Retail is one that is, it's just so common that they don't typically invest in it. Businesses that are primarily involved in wholesale activities, unless you can clearly show that there is a lot of value added to the process. If you're just taking a product and you're then sticking your name on it and then selling it to someone else, that's what they deem as wholesale. Acquisitions and buyouts of existing businesses are other big ones. Land purchase, lease, things like that. Those are costs that typically NOHFC will not support. And there's a lot more details there. I see some questions coming in. I'm going to wait till the question period and then I'll go over them all. Okay. So once again, for more details, check out the website. Next slide. How do I apply? It's very easy to apply. First off, talk about your potential project with a Northern Development Advisor like myself or Lucy Quietin or someone else in our office, okay? We are here to help you. Be aware that this is a two-stage process whereby you complete an initial application through the website, and then it goes to NOHFC, and they will get back to you usually within 10 business days on eligibility. So what that means is whether or not they will consider the project and it falls within their guidelines. The goal there is not to make you waste a lot of time into a full business plan on something that NOHFC may not support. Okay, so like I said, you just go to nohfc.ca, you click on programs, you click on, in this case, the Invest North program. At the bottom, you hit apply now, create a username, password to log in. The easiest thing to do is go through, complete a rough draft of your application. Before you hit submit, hit save as PDF and send a rough copy to your Northern Development Advisor like myself or Lucy. We will give you advice on how to position it. We'll go back and forth with some advice, and then it's easiest to hit submit. This way we can tell you what we see in other projects, maybe what helped them or what held them back, and have you consider things like that. We're mainly about the NOHFC process in this case. All right. We may give you some advice in regards to your business, but we're not here to tell you how to run your business. That's not us. Don't worry. Government, we're not telling you how to run your business. We are here to assist you in navigating the NOHFC process. Next slide. How long does the process take? Generally, it takes an average of 3 to 6 months to complete. Okay. Once again, we're still just talking about this program, which is the launch program for starting a new business. Typically at eligibility, so after you do that initial submission online, you'll hear back within 10 business days. And this is all as shown on the NOHFC website, this slide. If eligible, like I said, they'll get back to you, and then someone like me or Lucy will help you throughout the next step. And this is where you do a more detailed business plan. Then from there, if that's submitted, evaluation generally takes 10 to 15 business days. And then it's all about fitting within a schedule of board meetings. The board meets every 6 to 8 weeks. So really the reason why it's 3 to 6 months is because where you fit within a board meeting schedule, as well as how you get information back to us. Okay. If you get information back to us quickly and we go through, then yeah, it's quicker. If it takes longer from your end as well as our end, then that's why we see the longer ones. Okay. And then after a board meeting, you're typically informed within 5 to 10 business days. Next slide. Here's the key points in applying. Don't worry, we're coming up to a question period. So these are some of our key points we found working with businesses. First of all, costs incurred before applying are always ineligible. This is most government funding programs. However, I say this, and then NOHFC rolled out the NORP program for COVID, which then kind of changed that rule. Of course, NOHFC is always trying to adjust with the market. So COVID's a good example of how they try to adjust. Typically, put in your application as of that date, costs are eligible if you get approved down the road. So for example, if you put in an application today, started spending money next week, and then were approved 3 months later, your first claim would be saying, well, here are my receipts from the last 3 months. Can I have whatever the percentage agreed upon in the funding agreement was? Typically 50% or 20% in other programs, things like that. So that's the next point, which is very key. Funding is always claim-based on receipts. There are no advances, okay, in these programs. So you would have to say, here's my receipt, here's the proof of purchase, see them together, show it to us. We say, okay, check the box, and it goes from there, okay? Another key point, 3 quotes are necessary for all purchases over 25,000. We do bend this rule a lot if it's very specialized in a field. If you can show us that, you know what, it's totally customized what I'm looking at doing, there isn't, then we can go through the process of evaluating whether or not you can sole source it. The last part is insurance. NOHFC, all NOHFC projects, NOHFC must be added as additional insured. This should not cost you anything. We will also make sure that you have the proper insurance, which is usually general liability at $2 million. Okay. So these are just some key points we found over the years that we think help people going through. All right, next slide, and I think is a question period. So now we open it up. Charlotte, do you want to handle this one, or you want me to just go right through the chat post?
Why don't we start with the first question there, which is how is retail defined?
How is retail defined? Directly to the consumer. That's what it would be. We see a lot of, NOHFC does fund business to business, and I'm going to use an example. A good example would actually be Prime Gelato, which has been publicly released. I might refer to business projects that have been released in theirs. So if you think of their front area, the retail, no. However, if you think of their back end, which is the manufacturing, which they then sell to other stores or they export and they do things like that, that's a good example. That is a fundable. That is something, no, it's food processing, it's going to other markets, it's doing all these things. NOHFC would fund that. I use Prime Gelato just because I like gelato a lot. So sorry, guys. And if you don't, you should try it out.
Sean and I share that passion. So the next question is, would tour operators be included under a service business?
We have funded tour operators in the past. It really comes down to what is the fundable. And you're going to hear this a lot from me. What is the fundable? Like I said, we don't fund wages. We don't fund rolling stock in a lot of cases unless it's very customized. So it's what are we funding? If we're funding the leasehold improvements to a space, possibly. Tour operators would fall under tourism, which is a big priority to the province, especially when we look at the COVID recovery. So what I would say in that answer is talk to us. I need to know a little bit more about the project, what you're looking at doing, and possibly going from there.
Awesome. So Diane just makes a comment, which is something that, of course, is more of an advocacy piece because it's a political decision that questioning global retail innovation that comes out of the North is not encouraged. And her view that this is short-sighted. So that's definitely something we've been raising with the Minister, Diane, and we'll be continuing to raise that.
Yeah.
Sean, anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, just because NOHFC doesn't fund it, remember, there are many other types of funding sources that would be like that. I do hear that a lot, and I see the point, but it really comes back to that point of retail is so wide open that we don't want to support one at the expense of another. So I see that as a comment that comes back a lot, but I do see that, but there are other funding programs that might assist, like Digital Main Street is a great one that came out with supporting them with marketing and things like that. So I would suggest maybe looking at those things.
Perfect. Would telecommunications / internet provider businesses be excluded for Invest North support? In quotes, a saturated market in Northwestern Ontario, which is technically wholesale but requires infrastructure development and deployment and is normally excluded from grants. So any thoughts around that, or is that maybe a little bit more specific and you need to have a conversation about the specific?
Yeah,
project?
like something like that, I would really just suggest reaching out. We have invested in a lot of like broadband infrastructure and investments like that. It's just kind of, we would have to know more about the project. It's difficult for you to give me like a and I'm not pointing this one out, giving me a 1 or 2 sentence description and for me to make kind of, yeah, we would, or yeah, we wouldn't. It really goes back into talking to someone and kind of going from there.
Perfect. Kevin asks, in addition to general liability, are there any requirements for cybersecurity measures to protect client data and privacy? Good question, Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin, I know Kevin. That is a good question. No, the requirements for insurance aren't as specific as that. we try to just manage our liability as the province to an overall level, not specific to that level. We would expect that, yeah, cybersecurity is such a newer thing, and it's so difficult for us to kind of dictate to you. That is a very good, I'm going to take that one back to our team and just kind of, that's another key point, is all these questions are going to go back to NOHFC. I'm going to take them back there and kind of go from there.
Perfect. Another question from Tammy. What have been the changes to tourism businesses becoming eligible?
Tourism businesses are eligible. It really just goes back to what you're looking to do, you know, and it goes back to kind of those things that we don't fund in NOHFC. So I'd say really just reach out to us and say, this is exactly what I want to do, everything like that. And we'll try to help you shape it from there. But yeah, we have historically invested in a lot of tourism projects. If you Google tourism investment NOHFC Thunder Bay, you'll see a press release on a few of them.
Perfect. Ryan says, what about professional services that provide services to other businesses, i.e. they're not selling to individuals?
So professional services are eligible under the program changes, but it really is the caveat that they don't want to unduly impact existing professional services. So they have to clearly show that there is a need in the market. Okay. So if it's, you know, there's 10 consultants and a new consultant wants to start up, they don't typically do that. If it's very specialized in the market and you can show the case, then yeah, I would say talk to a Northern Development Advisor and see where to go from there.
Perfect. So Diane's building on the question around retail. So she says, as a retailer who is developing technology that needs to be tested in the current retail environment, but will ultimately be sold to other retailers, is there maybe an option there for qualification?
Yeah, that is interesting. So one of the programs I'm not going over is our innovation program. So that's interesting how you would do that. Developing technology, it needs to be tested. But like there's the CTAF program, there's the BTIF program out of the Innovation Center. It sounds like what you're doing there maybe to reach out to the Innovation Center, and they might be able to source specific innovation funding programs that might be able to assist, or we just come back together. But yeah, definitely that might be something we would look at.
Perfect. Okay, so Diane, I think you and Sean need to have an offline conversation. Sounds like there may be some options there. Ryan,
you're right.
asks,
CTAF is over now. There is BTIF. Hopefully the Innovation Center and through there we'll be able to have some other sources. Sorry, I jumped ahead of you there, Cheryl.
No worries. Ryan says, is there still a third-party auditing for the launch procedure in that 3 to 6 month timeline?
There is. Ryan is correct. So what it used to be is we have really changed the process. It used to be on eligibility as a business project, you would then get sent to a third party auditor or an accounting firm. Now it's not. Instead, you will get sent back to a Sean or a Lucy or someone like that, and we will help you. And then the third party accounting firm will just look at it from the perspective of the evaluation. So we have sped that process up in that we will be working with you to get it ready for them. But that is within the 3 to 6 month timeline. Hopefully it should be quicker like this, because you're going to have someone like Sean kind of just, hey, hit submit. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. I could be quite annoying, my kids say.
Perfect. So that's all the questions in the chat. So I'll pass it back to you, Sean, to carry on.
All right, next slide. All right, so that was our launch program, which is really designed around business startup. And a business startup is within 6 months of starting business. So for everyone else, which a lot of the people on here will be interested in, is the Grow program, which is expanding your business. All right. Also, this program could be used if you are a startup and you're a larger sized project. So if you're talking about a larger one, these numbers, even though the percentages seem lower, the maximum funding you can go after is higher. So you can go after a conditional contribution, which is grant. which is non-repayable as long as certain conditions are met, of 20% of your total project cost, but it can go up to $400,000 as opposed to the previous program, which was 50% up to $200,000. So with this program, you can either do grant or you can do grant and loan. And there's the loan, which would be 30%, or you could just do a loan of 50%, but like you typically just go after the grant. Next slide. Once again, these are very similar to the other slide and what the evaluation factors are. A key difference in this one is there's competitive rounds, meaning that they will look at these every 3 months. So the process might be a little bit slower. This just makes it easier for us to manage on our end and compare it to other projects, okay? That's why they're looking at this. So those are the competitive intake dates. Those are for completed evaluations. So that isn't you submit by that date. Those are not application deadlines. Those are finished evaluations. You've gone through the entire process. And if you make it to one of those dates, that's when the meetings will be. And like I said before, same evaluation factors as before. Next slide. Very similar to the previous one, what projects are not eligible? Once again, though, I would suggest always reach out. Our job here is to help you. Just say, hey, I want to do this, Sean or Lucy, what do you think? We will get back to you. We will give you advice. Always reach out. Our emails are in the chat box. Go from there. Next slide. How to apply? Once again, exact same process. Go to the website, register, fill out an application. Do not hit submit. As soon as you hit submit, it's gone. It's in the system. It's gone to NOHFC. Instead, the easiest thing to do, I find, is hit save as PDF and email a copy of that PDF to someone like myself or Lucy. We are here to help you, okay? We take great pride in helping businesses. Let us help you. Next slide. Once again, key points in applying, very similar, okay? Costs incurred before that initial application are always ineligible under these NOHFC programs. Same points as the previous one. Next slide. Question time. That was a quick one. We just came right at you. Are sole proprietor business eligible for funding? Yes. I would suggest incorporating, but we have funded sole proprietors. Are the grow expansion stream, what is the max project completion timeline? Very good question, James. Typically, it's 1 year after you sign the contract with NOHFC. NOHFC is flexible in this. We have extended projects before, and currently in the COVID environment, we are extending projects frequently. But if you get approved, you'll get sent an approval letter, and then you'll get sent a legal agreement, which you will sign, NOHFC will sign, and as of that date, NOHFC signed, you have 1 year to spend the money and complete the project. I know it's your business, but we call it a project with there. You can also request extensions, but also remember it goes all the way back to your initial application date. So sometimes 1 year really seems like 2, okay? Or you can ask for extensions. We do extensions. There has to be a reason, but we do extensions through NOHFC all the time. I know you didn't talk about locate, but is there a PR requirement?
I'm not sure exactly what that means.
What is
Do you
the
understand that?
PR requirement?
You mean public relations? Oh, permanent residency. Okay.
Yeah, we're not getting into the locate program just because it's not really the target market of them. But yeah, we can definitely talk offline about all that. It has to be coming. They have to be looking at relocating to Northern Ontario. But yeah, we can go over that with Ryan after.
Perfect.
Sorry, I jumped over you again, Charlotte.
That's okay. Well, that's all the questions in the chat, so carry on.
Okay, next slide. The People and Talent Program. This is probably the most popular program through NOHFC. It's very similar to the previous program being the intern program. It's really designed to help our workforce, okay? I always say look at it from two ways. One is to help a business test a new position, and hopefully it's long-term. Number two, it's to help our labor force and invest in our labor force with experience and job opportunities. Those are the two ones to look at, okay? Next slide. The changes made this time is based on feedback. NOHFC does a review continuously looking at how to improve. And with that, we're trying to grow the Indigenous workforce. So we came out with this Indigenous Workforce Development Program to support that goal. So with that, under the People and Talent, you can go after the Indigenous Workforce Development Program if you're going to be able to hire someone that self-identifies as Indigenous, and we'll get into the details on that, or you can go after the Workforce Development Program, okay? It's a little confusing on the website because we fund nonprofits 90%, but for private sector, we fund 50%, okay? That's just general rules they do. Next slide. Here's where we go into more details on exactly what is funded, okay? And then I'll go through all the changes and everything like that. So who is eligible? This is, and it really goes over everyone who's eligible under that and what they would fund. Up to 75% is the general way to look at it of their salary and their MERCs, okay? So the mandatory employment related costs, so CPP, EI, vacation, things like that. What they will not fund under this program is discretionary benefits paid by the employer, anything extra other than those mandatory ones. Training expenses, the reason why they highlight that is some other programs do. Any positions that displace existing employees, no, it's not intended you're going to fire someone and hire someone under this program. It has to be a new program. It always goes back to NOHFC's goal of growing and expanding. They're also not looking at positions of a certain nature. They're not looking at general manual labor, clerical, once again, primarily retail and general sales, things like that. That's not saying that a retail business cannot apply for this program. Okay, we have a lot of retail businesses that apply for this program. It just means that they won't fund a sales position. It depends on the position. If you tell me, like Diane's point, if I want to hire a marketing person for this and they will grow the organization, then they would typically, we've seen a lot of that funded in the past. It really comes down to the nature of the position. Next slide. What is eligible? And that's what I just got into. A key point is, what do we deem as full-time? It's 35 hours a week. That's what NOHFC deems as full-time. Also, self-identify for Indigenous person, including First Nation, Métis, or Inuit, okay? It used to be related to education. This program has changed, and that was really based on the feedback of people applying, okay? We really listened to our stakeholders here, and NOHFC adjusted it. It's new entrants into the workforce. They don't necessarily need a university or college degree. If the position dictates it, of course, you're going to put it in for that position, but we did see some that didn't require that, so they adjusted this program. They have to be underemployed or unemployed or entering a new field. Examples, underemployed is, well, less than full-time, part-time, casual, things like that are underemployed. It really goes back to the role of this is it's to support new entrants into it. Second careers is another big one as well. So if someone was in an industry that they're transitioning out of and this is their first time opportunity in another one, then it would fit. They can't have previously participated in a similar program or an NOHFC funded internship, which was the previous program. They have to be at least 18 years of age. There are no other age limits, okay? In the past, there have been age limits. Just to be clear, this program, there's no age limits other than they have to be at least 18 years. They have to reside and be legally entitled to work in Canada. Okay, next slide. Now here is the regular workforce development stream. This is up to 50% funding for a position. Very similar to the other one, okay? A key point is the business has to be in operation for at least 1 year and have a minimum of one full-time employee. NOHFC does bend on that a little bit, usually in regards to nonprofits, and if they have a volunteer board, we do look at it on a case-by-case basis, but that's generally, that's a rule they hold pretty firm. What is not eligible, same as the previous one, what they do not fund. Next slide. What is eligible, same as the previous one. Okay, 52 weeks, 35 hours / a week for candidates. Everything else is the same. Okay, you'll see on the NOHFC website, sometimes they fund 2-year internships. It really goes back to if they're going for certification or something like that, and the certification program they are going for has been recognized by NOHFC in the past. So I'd always ask that question of a Northern Development Advisor if it's applicable to your project. Next slide. How do I apply? Same for both of the programs. Look at the people and talent, click on it, hit apply now. I would really once again suggest reaching out to a Northern Development Advisor, okay? A key point with this application is it's a one-stage process. People really like this program. It's a little bit easier to apply. Like the application, it's not don't think that this is a very cumbersome or difficult process, okay? I've sat down beside people, or I've done it over Zoom or Teams, 30 minutes to fill out an application. And like I said, it's claims-based. It's pretty easy to claim it. You just have to show your payroll, or you just have to show bank statements, and just it coming out. It's a very popular program. Charlotte, do you want to speak on behalf of the program? You've hired a lot of interns.
We've had a lot of interns. In fact, we have an intern right now who's helping us run the program today. So we've certainly found the program very helpful, and would certainly encourage everyone to look at it, because it's a great way to find some really great young help that needs a start off in their career, but also you're helping them and they're helping you. So definitely something we would encourage you to look at.
Thanks, Charla. An impromptu reference there. I just kind of threw it at her. Next slide. Key points in applying. Don't worry, we're almost at the question period. Key points in applying, like I said, there's no longer a requirement for recent graduates or education. It used to be you'd have to say what the degree was and everything like that. You can only hire based on that. Now, we're not telling you not to put a degree if it's required for the job, of course, but some jobs, it's not required. There are no age limits like previous programs. A key point, you don't need to put intern in the actual job title. Sometimes I see people do that a lot. A lot of times applicants look at intern and they think it's free or things like that. You don't need to do that. Like I said, funding is claims-based. It's twice a year, although you can request up to 4 times a year. So you get approved, 6 months later, you'd put in a claim, you'd say, here's everything to show that we paid them and everything, give us our money, we do a direct deposit. That's basically a process. You can request 4 times a year if you require it for cash flow. NOHFC will need to approve your candidate. So you can hire someone if you think they fit the requirements for NOHFC, over 18, reside in Canada or in the community, things like that I previously mentioned. You can hire them, but you're taking the risk whether or not NOHFC approves it. Okay. Next slide. Question time. Let's see, the survey says.
So I
You-
think the first question there, Sean, is from Greg. What sort of third-party funding are you referring to? And I think that was prior to the discussion of the intern programs. Are you looking at things like Futurepreneur, BDC, a business line of credit, or a loan? What exactly do you mean about third-party funding?
Yes, like typically in a lot of applications, we'll see other third-party funding. NOHFC will not allow more than 50% of all federal and provincial sources of funding, but there are some other ones. But yeah, like those, I would look at financing, like BDC is financing, the banks are financing, but you occasionally run into other sources of funding. A good example would be the MAT tax, and you know the CEDC determines that, so that would come out. And that would be outside of the 50% funding because that's not directly from the federal government or the provincial government. That's what I was looking on that one. But you know, specific to that, Greg, if you want, just reach out. I'll answer all those questions, or if I don't know, I'll try and get them.
Sarah asks, throw back to that retail definition in the previous programs. Is the definition associated with particular NAIC codes? Not clear on how that is evaluated.
Yeah, it's not that clear. And the reason why NOHFC is unclear in some things is they don't want to be hard set on certain things. They want to be case by case. They want to be flexible. Sometimes we just want to be gray. You know, why am I wearing gray? So no, it isn't based on NAICS codes. It's not particular to that. It's really what is the level of the market? Are they selling directly to people? And is it going to unduly impact others? It really looks at those 5 key evaluation criteria that I brought up. Okay.
Perfect. James asks, for the people and talent streams, is funding restricted to 1 new employee per company, or could we apply for funding for multiple positions?
Yeah. All businesses are eligible for up to 2 interns under our program, or interns under the people and talent program. I keep referring to them as interns. 2 positions. Okay. Like for example, the chamber can hire 2. It's limited to 2. So for example, the city of Thunder Bay can only hire 2. The only difference is sometimes is the college and university for research positions, but no, you can get 2. You just have to show the need, show exactly how they fit together, everything like that. We have a lot of businesses get 2.
Perfect. Jacqueline asks, would this program apply for hiring interns through a university or college co-op program?
Actually, if you're looking at like a 1-year co-op, ooh, that would be interesting. Lucy, do you have the exact one on that? Is Lucy on the line?
I am. I was looking at that as well. My gut would be no, especially if it's a semester-based co-op program. But again, we would maybe take a look at the specific co-op and take it from there, because there is the 52-week requirement for the people and talent stream. So that's a consideration in terms of eligibility as well.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking too. If you're talking about a 1 year, then it would be interesting. But yeah, or is it going to be a 6 month? It has to be 52 weeks. We won't look at seasonal. We won't look at things like that. But yeah, put the exact details on it, and then we would look at it. Like NOHFC, they did a training session with us, and they said typically not co-ops, but it really goes back to what you're looking at doing there and what the length of time is. That's the key point, as well as like the program is hoping to support people long term. We want these jobs full time. Okay.
Perfect. Sarah asks, how is legally entitled to work in Canada defined, and does it need to include a permanent residency? And I know that it doesn't need to include a permanent residency. Is that correct, Sean?
I will defer to you on that, Charla, as you've applied to that. Yes, I believe it does not include it. Lucy, do you have the exact details on that?
No, I think it would be, again, very applicant specific.
Yeah.
We do. We have been successful in hiring an intern who does not have their permanent residency and only has their their postgraduate authorization to work coming out of post-secondary education. So
a lot of times it goes back to what the definition is like, or the definition of the position is, as well as what your response was. If you could only find one applicant, you know, it used to be that this program was really limited, even more. Like we wanted to keep Northern Ontario people in Northern Ontario. It has changed. We're a little bit more flexible. I would just shoot the question exactly, send it to us. I'll send it to NOHFC and we'll get a specific response.
perfect. Lance says, I've often identified the new startup classification as a business operational for a year or more to qualify for funding and programs. Is there any actual programs for businesses under a year of operation but are already showing profits?
That's a good question. Ours is at 6 months. NOHFC made a change to their program too that said hobbyist business does not impact that 6 months. So if you're doing something like and you're just making 1,000 or 2,000 a month and it's not enough to support a full-time job at that level, it doesn't fall into their 6-month guideline. We're just talking NOHFC rules. Anything within a year, that would be more difficult. I would say really, you know, Lance is hitting us with some pretty detailed questions here. Reach out to us, tell us exactly what you're looking at doing, and we'll see how we can help.
Diane asks, must the intern reside in the north, or can they work remotely from outside the region?
Wow, that's a good question, Diane. I'm pretty sure they have to reside in the north. Lucy, have you seen any examples outside of that? I haven't seen any.
No, I haven't. My gut would also say that they would have to reside in the north. One thing that NOHFC is very clear on is that projects benefit Northern Ontario and take place in Northern Ontario. So that's a real emphasis with all of our program streams. So my gut would be that they would need to work within the region. But we can, again, get clarity on that.
But a follow-up to that, I guess, because everyone is working remotely, would a business in Thunder Bay be able to hire someone to work remotely from Sudbury or North Bay?
In that case, I think it would be fine because it's still Northern Ontario and it still fits Lucy's definition of supporting the North. I've heard discussions on some of the surrounding areas in the First Nations have difficulty recruiting. So in that case, then you could. But yeah, I would say it goes back to Lucy's definition there.
And I would also throw in one of the key components of people in town is that there's access to a supervisor. So working remotely, there would still have to be that supervisory component to consider as well.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, we know so many people are in COVID. This was a question that came up a lot, was how exactly you do that. You know, it's about training them as well. You know, there's that big time training component of it. Next question.
With the payroll funding, do you require a whole new application if an employee quits or is let go and a new employee meets the criteria for the same program?
You would just contact NOHFC and you can then just do a replacement intern, or depending on the length of time they've been in the position, like if it's 11 months and there's only 1 month left, you can apply for a new internship or things like that. They run into this pretty regularly. So you would just go back to them and say, okay, you know, we had this person, they quit or they're moving on or stuff like that. And then it's really just what is the existing time and the situation from there. Our intern program is administered by one of our staff dedicated to it. Like we kind of show it off and then we push them to this one staff person and she's amazing. Yeah, like you probably dealt with Joey a lot, Charlotte. She's very good.
She's fabulous. Yeah. So then James follows up about the question about 2 positions per company. So would that be 2 positions total, or 2 for the Indigenous program and 2 for the other program?
Good question, eh?
I love these entrepreneurs looking for help.
There's some ginger on ginger violence here, James. No, I'm just kidding. That's a good question. I think it's only 2 per company. Do you know differently, Lucy? I'm pretty sure it's just 2.
Right, it is two, regardless of the stream, there is a lot of feedback coming in about the differentiation between the streams. So that feedback is being provided to NOHFC.
Okay, so we might adjust, James. But yeah, currently right now it is the 2.
And then Linda asks, can 2 not-for-profits with similar goals share one position to help both?
Yes, they can. I've done this myself, not in this position, but when I was in the municipal arena, I had a position shared between 3 organizations, and I got it funded for when I was on the other side, when I was the client. It just has to have a clear supervision plan, a clear training plan. They have to work together. It can't be a nonprofit and a business, because then it'd be different funding levels, stuff like that. But yes, we have seen that in the past.
And Diane says, during COVID, can interns work from home or must they physically work at a business location?
They can work from home. Okay. We recognize the struggles of COVID. NOHFC is very flexible when it comes to COVID. They've paused contracts so employers can take advantage of higher COVID subsidy programs and then restarted them and done things like that. We've seen by accident people have 2 funding sources, and we adjust. We do things to help you within our legal requirements, of course, but we're here to help businesses. Okay. But yes, they can.
Perfect. And then John Paul says, can 2 for-profits also share a
Ooh,
position, or is that
good.
only allowed for not-for-profits?
I haven't seen it for 2 for-profits. I think you could. You would just have to clearly say exactly what it is. They'd have to be complementary. They'd both have to, like, what you would do is you'd hire them for one, and then you basically share them with the other, or have an agreement to share them with the other. I think. Have you seen anything different, Lucy? I haven't seen 2 for-profits share a position.
No, I haven't either. So that's something that we could look at, to see if there's some potential there.
I don't know why not. I would suggest just put it forward and we'll kind of see from there.
Makes sense for those kind of collaborative businesses. They're working closely with another business on some projects, right?
Definitely. I just got to reboot my computer now pop up. So if something happens.
Lucy, you're on standby. Okay, was there that was all the questions in the chat. Is that the end of the presentation, Sean, or did you have more slides?
There's just a couple more slides where it just says contact us if you have any issues or anything like that.
Perfect. So maybe let's move to that slide so everybody can see them then.
Yeah. Perfect. And that's generally the last slide. If you need help, there's our area team number. There's our direct cell phone numbers. There's our email addresses, everything like that. Remember, our job here is to help you. The best thing is send us an email. We share a database with NOHFC. We see every project ever approved or declined through NOHFC. So we can go back and see what worked for them, what didn't work, what they like, and things like that. Wow, 12:59, eh?
Good job. One more question from Dylan. You're not off the hook just yet, Sean.
Dylan.
Does the launch program only deal with projects that haven't started yet, or does it also include recently started programs?
Recently started. It's within 6 months. 6 months of basically you could run a full-time position on that. Okay. But yeah, there's frequently asked questions as well on the NOHFC website that directly addresses that. But yeah, that's generally the rule is 6 months.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you, Sean and Lucy, for so much information. As we said at the beginning, we're going to have the presentation on our website probably within a couple of days. We'll also share the slides at the same time, so you can go back and take a look at any of the points you missed without watching through the whole presentation again. But thank you, Sean and Lucy, for sharing your expertise with us. Before we end the session today, We'd like to hear from you. We are trying to figure out what kind of events our members are looking for now in this new virtual reality. And so we have a short event development survey. The link, wild as it may look, is now in the chat, and we would certainly encourage anyone that has a few moments to just click on that link and fill out our survey to give us your insights on virtual events and what kind of topics and activities you're looking for. All survey participants will be entered into a draw for a chance to win a $100 SO gift card, which was sponsored by our member RWDI Thunder Bay. So thank you again for attending. We will be posting that recording in the next few days, and stay safe, everybody. Certainly now is a time to be taking extra precautions and following all the rules carefully so that we can all stay safe. And all the best to you, and call our office if there's any further information that we can provide with you in your business. Take care and have a great day.